Welcome to Pod to Profit, the ultimate guide to building a profitable podcast and turning your passion into a business. I'm Liz, host of the Flower Farmer Forum podcast, a six-figure platform I've built by connecting with and serving others, and the Back to Better podcast, a self-help book club sharing my message of growing better instead of staying bitter.
And I'm Abby, a podcast producer with over 10 years of audio editing experience. I've helped launch successful shows on everything from cattle ranching to nonprofits to sports. Together, we're here to help you amplify your message, build a lasting platform, and turn your voice into profit. Let's dive in.
That should be our intro music.
Welcome back to another episode of Pod to Profit. I'm Abby.
I'm Liz.
And today we are going to walk you through a step-by-step podcast launch plan. So you've worked out some of the kinks and you're like, okay, I think I'm ready. Let's start a podcast. What exactly do you need to do?
And what is a realistic timeline to do that? So we're going to go through the steps to successfully plan, produce, and launch a podcast from start to finish. And we're going to talk about content creation, promotion, audience engagement, all of that. We are currently doing this exact plan with Pod to Profit. And I have another podcast that's going to be launching in April. If it doesn't end up happening, then, we'll talk about why that didn't end up happening. I'm just not ready to talk about what it is yet. But we're using this exact plan for that podcast itself.
So step one, planning and pre-production. When I have clients come to me and say, I'm ready, let's do this, I always say, okay, well, but when do you want to launch? And they're like, well, as soon as possible. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want to go as soon as possible, I would recommend 2 months. And then they all just kind of like pause and think about it. And like, 2 months? We can't just do it tomorrow? There's a lot that goes into this. 2 months is actually a very fast, like on my end, timeline of getting everything done.
Well, and I think that we have practiced on ourselves, right? Abby and I have. And the truth is, building up that excitement is really, really important to have those successful first couple episodes. Now, don't get me wrong. What's great about a podcast is that they are evergreen. They are meant to be able to go back, listen to the episodes that you want to. But I think the reason my podcast, Flower Farmer Forum, was so successful was because I already had an audience, a built-in audience for a business. I said, hey, this podcast is coming, end of the month. My trailer got wasn't it like a couple thousand downloads in the first day? It was insane. And then there were people that are like, oh, it's about flower farming. I don't care.
Well, and that's the thing. You are going to see that typically that trailer episode, when you build buzz correctly, that is one of the most listened to pieces of content that you put out.
Exactly, because people check it out and they're like, oh, well, it's specifically about this. And that's okay because you are not going to appeal to everyone. But keeping in mind that to do this right, you build it up. Whereas I think, whether it's the Back to Better book club or whatever, I haven't done a great job of really planning that vision. But that's okay. Again, it's trial and error. That's why we're here talking about mistakes we made or what we would have done differently.
So part of step one is really defining the vision. What do you want to do with this podcast? Clarify what your mission is. Who are you trying to talk to? Who's your audience? What's the tone of your podcast? Is it very serious? Is it silly? Is it interview? Identify what makes it unique and what's going to make your listeners want to come back every single week.
Then you're going to outline your episode topics and structure. So start by making a list of potential episode topics. So outline a general structure for each episode, so segments, so intro, main content, interview, outro. When I first started with my Flower Farmer Forum podcast, at first it was the Sunny Mary Meadow podcast, I came up with, wasn't it 100 topics for episodes? And I still, there's still a lot of things I haven't talked about. And it's unlimited, but start brainstorming what those outlines are going to be or what those topics are going to be right away.
Another thing you can do is research and select some keywords. Now, we use rss.com to put our podcast out into the world, and it allows you to add keywords to it. So for yours, we use Flower Farmer Forum, we use Cut Flower Farm, we use Cut Flower Farming for Profit, things like that. Kind of do some research as to what your target audience is looking up, because those keywords are going to help trigger that when they're searching things just on Google.
So if someone is searching if they go into Spotify, if they go into Apple, whatever, and they type in on the search bar flower farming or whatever it might be, those keywords help mine show up. So it really is important to start figuring out what that SEO is going to be for those keywords.
And then creating your episode content, draft some outlines and scripts for your first handful of episodes. If interviews are planned, be sure you contact your guests, you set up those recordings, make sure they're all set and ready to go. Have a good idea of what you want to do in the first 2 months of your show before you even hit record on anything.
And then starting by buying the equipment, the recording software, whatever it might be, figuring out a quality microphone, headphones, whatever that software is going to be, like Abby had talked about, Audacity, GarageBand, Adobe Audition, and testing the setup to make sure you have good sound quality, because you're going to want to know, hey, I thought I could just record on Zoom with the microphone on my computer, but turns out it's really echoey. I can't record in my office with that echoey, or whatever it might be, but just planning for that right away so that if you have a bunch of guests coming out, because the last thing you want to do is be really excited, put out a couple episodes, and then have to pause, stop, and not have the equipment that you need to do it.
So moving on to step 2, let's get into production. So this is like a month and a half out from your selected launch date. So you can do things like recording a test episode, just make like a little sample. I like to use my test episode with clients as their introduction episodes. Like, it gets you warmed up, it gets you comfortable in the environment, because this is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to just, like, if you're not used to having a microphone in front of your face every single day, it can be a little nerve-wracking. And a lot of my clients, their first time we sit down to record things, they're always like, oh, I'm so nervous. And then the second recording session, they're like, I'm ready. That was so fun. I'm ready. Like, you just got to get comfortable with all of this.
And with that, so then I would say, if I could give some advice, record that test episode on its own. And then guess what? Another week or so later, re-record it.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. But I think that, if your goal is to sit down and, all right, we're going to do the first 5 episodes at once. Like, no. Like, you need to redo them. And I did that in the beginning. I would re-record episodes. And you guys, I still do it once in a while. I still send something to Abby, especially because my Flower Farmer Forum podcast, a lot of it, I'm truly convincing flower farmers that it's okay to make a profit. And sometimes it can come across not how I wanted to give the message. So sometimes I'm like, that's not what I was trying to say. That didn't sound the way I wanted it to. So I'm going to re-record it or whatever.
Well, we did that with the Back to Better book club as well. Initially, it started out with you just wanting to do it solo. But then you're like, this isn't sounding right.
Nope, it was sounding lecture-y or whatever it might be. So sometimes it's important to practice and then decide what you want it to be. So then, that month prior, which this is the stage we're at right now. When we're recording this today, it's Tuesday, December 10th. Our podcast is not coming out till the beginning of February.
Yeah.
So we are recording, we're trying to get like 2 to 3 months worth of content done this week and next week.
Yeah, we're just trying to hammer it out. You're in that month, you have some stuff recorded. That's when you're going to want to start editing and finalizing some episodes. So adding that introduction, finding your theme music. What is your show kind of format looking like? Is it pre-recorded intro? Is it pre-recorded outro? Just start tinkering with that, taking out those ums and those ahs, stutters, that sort of thing, and really just trying to figure out what that polished product is going to look like.
Creating your intro and outro comes next. So it's a consistent introduction or outro, so leaving message, to introduce and close each episode. Mention the podcast's purpose and encourage listeners to subscribe or follow or whatever that call to action might be, so that it is a consistent message. And it's okay to change that up. Honestly, I feel like every 6 months I change mine, and that's okay. I can just go back and
example, we did, so I work with the Indie Foundation, which is a local cancer nonprofit in central Minnesota. And we actually recorded 2 different outros so we can rotate them and kind of freshen it up, but with the same message.
Exactly. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to select and set up your hosting platform. So for me, we use RSS, and then you're just going to start distributing those episodes on there. So you already have the files, the MP3s, ding ding, ready to go. But then, you can upload them there, and, you can schedule them or whatever it might be. So that's, a month prior to launch. And then 2 to 3 weeks before you're launching, that's when you start getting people really excited. You don't need to start saying, hey, in 4 months, we've got a podcast coming out. Like, no, we're going to announce this probably mid-January, which is when we're going to be at the PodFest.
Yeah, we'll be at PodFest Expo. I'm already starting to brainstorm, like, how can we do our podcast launch at a podcasting expo?
I'm going to be exhausted that week.
It's going to be so fun.
Is it?
Orlando ain't ready for us.
Oh boy.
So some things you're going to want to work on when you're in that like branding and marketing step about a month out from your show coming out. Make sure you have your cover art and your branding elements ready to go. That's picking your theme colors, making that final graphic. If you actually in Canva, it's super handy when you're creating your podcast cover. You can just type in podcast cover and they have the dimensions set up for you. So be sure that you're using that. But yeah, you're picking those professional pictures that you want to use for every single element, whether that's your video, your reels, your cover art, all that good stuff.
Go ahead and set up your social media profiles. So whatever platform your audience is on, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, to promote your podcast, and then start sharing teaser content to build anticipation. In real live action, you can look at Pod to Profit and see how we did this and see like, go back to the early days. You know, we're going to post like 6 things at once so that when we make our first post, it's not just like there.
Not just like dangling out there like, hi, we're here, but there's nothing else for you to consume. So yeah, we're really going to be building that up. Your launch strategy, schedule promotional content, your teasers, countdowns leading up to when the episodes drop, highlights, little sneak peeks behind the curtain. I've been recording little clips of us behind the curtain, like Liz's chair right now. You can't see it in the video. But she is sitting on a chair with only 2 back legs and the front is her child's step stool.
You know, we only need to look good from the waist up. It's fine.
But those little behind the scenes moments really go a long way with really connecting with your audience.
And then, you know, just start networking, start building those partnerships. So, you know, you can reach out to similar podcasts or blogs or influencers. I've gotten a lot of opportunities or a lot of ideas for opportunities to kind of cross promote and guests for this podcast itself. But just start thinking about who's going to help promote your podcast. How are you getting that word out there? Now, I will share that be cautious when you do this because it is yours. My personal thought is you don't want someone else jumping on the bandwagon of your podcast right away and steering it in their direction. And, you know, the thing is like, oh, community over competition, the more the merrier, and everyone's out there to help. But this is something you have to be really careful about. And that is why I was so, and I still am, so hesitant to have any paid sponsorships for Flower Farmer Forum. Because the content, the thing that I'm selling is my knowledge and my expertise on how I have built a very, very successful, very, very profitable business. And I teach my clients to do the same thing. Now, if some seed company or tractor company or high tunnel company or whatever came along, and I mean, honestly, at this point, if I got offered $1,000 an episode, I still probably wouldn't take it.
There would have to be some very specific parameters put up on your end.
It would be so hard because, I mean, yes, as long as they're okay with like a mid-roll ad, but sometimes it's like, oh, well, we want your episodes to be more about the farming itself or more about. And to me, all of my episodes are just adjusting based on feedback of what my customers want me to talk about. And so I'm making more than that dollar amount on the business itself. And so it's really hard to like, what is the big picture? What is the big goal? Who are you serving? Why are you serving them? And I just think that would make people stop listening. If all I did was spent half the episode reviewing a certain product, like it'd be really hard. And so, I mean, we're going to have a whole thing about sponsorships and we do them and we have, you know, through trial and error, like figured it out, but we just want to share that a little bit more.
So moving on to step 4 in your pre-launch here. It's the week of the launch. Yay! Everyone's so excited. Nerves are a little shaky. Maybe not. I don't know. All depends.
We're not going to be
We don't get nervous anymore.
We're going to laugh when nobody listens to it. No, it's going to work. This is going to be huge.
It's fine. Everything's fine. So It's the week before your launch. You have this back catalog of content that you've already created. Now's the time to upload those first 3 to 5 episodes into your hosting platform and schedule them out for release. You're going to want to have several episodes ready to launch at the time of your first one going live, just so that it's there. And you could even make them go live. Like say you have 3 go live if you want people to just like have something to binge listen. I know there's a new podcast that I just started listening to. They just launched in early December. I wish they would have done this. It's called Spare Parts. It's the Letterkenny Rewatch podcast, which is this Canadian sitcom on Hulu. And I wish there was more to binge because now I'm listening week by week and I'm like, I just constantly want more.
Well, and I think that, when we launch this, we're going to have to talk about this and decide what we want to do. But that is definitely a strategy to, get the trailer out. I think we're going to release the trailer sometime like mid-January and say that, okay, episodes come out February 1st. We might say, okay, the first week, we're going to launch an episode on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And after that, it's on Mondays or whatever it might be. Just to have something for people to get really hooked on right away.
Yeah. Just really build that rapport with the people that are listening.
And then you're going to submit your podcast to different directories. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, whatever that might be. It can take a little while. I think Apple, didn't that one take me like 3 or 4 days or something weird?
We've had some struggles with Apple in the past. And I will tell you on RSS, if that's the platform that you're using, which I recommend. They're not paying us to say that, but RSS, if you want to sponsor this, call me. What you're going to want to do is when that trailer goes live, that's when you can distribute. You cannot distribute before you have a single live episode. So you're going to want to make sure the trailer goes live before the episodes and well in advance. I recommend at least a week just so you can have a few days on hand to go through the distribution process for different platforms that might give you some trouble.
And then you're going to want to prepare a little bit of a press release. So just draft it in an email announcement or whatever it might be to share with, your social contacts, your broadcasters, whatever other podcasters, and just get ready to go that week before. Like schedule those emails. Boom, it's going to go. And for us, for example, this Pod to Profit, it's going to go out on my Flower Farm email. It's going to be at the bottom. It's going to go out on my Flower Farmer Forum email. It's going to be at the bottom. Like whatever audience you have, because we are building a brand new audience and I want them to have something somewhere to go. We have not teased whatsoever on our socials for Pod to Profit because there's nothing to look at yet. However, it still works and these strategies are good. So I have a short-term vacation rental that we are getting ready to renovate. It's not live yet, but it's Brophy Bungalow. And I think I have 290 followers on Instagram. Yeah. And there is one post from August and it's December right now. But I keep sharing it on my personal Instagram, Liz Fiddler Mergen. I keep sharing like the DIY behind the scenes. I really don't want to post like DIY photos on that Brophy Bungalow. And it's like everyone knows it's there. So I just keep posting in my stories of Liz Fiddler Mergen, like, hey, look at, here's my husband with this wet saw going through the concrete trying to find a pipe that we never ended up finding.
I did like, there was a snippet of Merle in your dog Merle made a little cameo in one of the videos, and I'm always on the lookout for Merle.
But I tagged that account like, hey, we're fixing up the at Brophy Bungalow. I got 9 new followers from that. So all I'm doing is just getting them to hit follow, and then once I have something to post, I will. But there is one photo and I have 290 followers on that page right there. And then I have shared like the email list for that when it launches, but it's just keep getting that just keep nurturing that audience basically.
So then we are to launch day and beyond launch day, because welcome to your new tomorrow. So you're going to make your launch day announcements. These are the things that you scheduled out the week before, the emails, the social media posts that you have drafted and ready to go. You're going to put stuff in your stories, direct links, because now it's live, so you can link to things. You can throw those links in the blogs, publish on the blog. Like there's a lot that can go on, and the more you have prepared beforehand, the better.
Yeah, and then you're going to just try to engage those early listeners. So when people are commenting, when they're sending messages, when they're giving you feedback, ask them for reviews, encourage them to share the podcast. Just try to get those people even more excited about it.
Something that I encourage, but I also discourage. Like I have a very like teeter-tottery view on this is tracking your performance and engagement, monitoring your listener statistics. RSS does a great job of spitting out who's listening when, and they update it like what, every hour, something like that, which is awesome. Like that is fantastic. But I would hate to like have someone hovering over that all day. You did that.
I did.
But like I don't want it to stress you out. Like it takes time for a podcast to grow. It takes time for those numbers to take off. You're not going to go viral right away because you're not Prince Harry. You're not Dax Shepard. You're not Joe Rogan. It doesn't happen overnight. So don't get too stressed about it. Check on your numbers. Make sure that they're going up, but don't get stressed over it and don't get too tied up in it.
The biggest thing is to keep producing more content. So just maintain a consistent recording and release schedule to keep your listeners engaged and use that feedback to improve your episodes and content over time, but just keep working at it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I have a schedule down now where usually every 3 weeks I record a month's worth of episodes, something like that. Today is Tuesday. I don't have anything beyond next Monday for my podcast, but we are working on this. I'm working on my courses. Like I'm not worried about it.
Christmas is in 2 weeks. Let's keep that in mind.
Coming. And I did a huge keynote speech yesterday. I spoke at the Minnesota State FFA conference, the winter conference for the leadership development events. Like I'm just going to give that speech to my microphone and there we go. Like I'll record it tonight. It'll be fine. If this was the case a year ago, like I would be stressing out. I always feel better when there's some things in the wings, but I mean, if we have to once in a while, like just go back to a throwback episode or something like that, but just keep producing that content because you never know when life's going to get busy. But yeah, and then otherwise, your long-term growth plan, just keep experimenting. Look at what topics and formats resonate most, not only with your audience, but that are fun for you. So try some new segments, different guest types, different content formats, and just keep it fresh.
And expanding to new platforms. If there's a demand, consider creating video versions for YouTube or YouTube Shorts, or I don't know where TikTok will be at the time of this because there's a potential government ban on it, which I will not be okay with if it happens. But if there's new platforms where there's an audience developing, go and post content to there. Take your content and put it there and see what happens. You never know if it could take off.
Yeah. And then once you have a steady audience, explore those sponsorships, affiliate marketing, listener-supported funding, whatever. And like I said, just because it might not seem like a great fit for me to have, some huge brand sponsorships or like long-term sponsorships, an episode here or there, absolutely, like if it's relevant, but it's best to be in that position where you can be choosy and you can afford to be choosy and you can be true to yourself. And, just following this plan is going to help you feel so prepared to launch, and it's going to be well produced, it's going to be engaging, and you're going to be set up for consistent growth.
And we have a bunch of resources down in the show notes below, whether you're interested in checking out what rss.com is. We have some free downloads that you can check out. You can join our email list, follow us on social media, all that good stuff. We're here to help you.
Yep. So I hope this episode was helpful when you hear, it takes about 2 months to launch a podcast. It's because there's a lot to do. And you know what? Looking at this whole list, there are things we definitely did not do, but so can it be done without some of these things? Yeah, but we're trying to launch a successful podcast.
Long term, baby.